As I mentioned in the first video in this series, step 1 in emotional intelligence is knowing and being able to express how you feel at any given time. On the surface, it might sound simple, but as I said, I reckon 50% of the population actually have no idea what they're feeling because they're out of practice at putting difficult or confusing concepts into words. You'll notice I'm being a bit specific here. I'm not saying people don't have feelings. In fact, quite the opposite. We all have intense emotions. Feelings dominate our reasons when it comes to what matters to us and what doesn't. Or as a mentor of mine once said, people buy an emotion and justify in logic. In other words, I bought the car because I love it, but I can't tell you that. So I'm saying I bought it because the old one needed servicing that might be expensive and another year's rego and tyres, etc. So firstly, there's a confusion that arises because we're out of practice at naming emotions and being comfortable with the idea that what we described is what it actually is. Secondly, we often have what appear to be contradictory emotions. If you're a parent, you've no doubt thought at some stage that you were ready to kill the very same child that you actually love more than words can describe. The result of these conflicting, confusing, self-generated opposites is self-doubt. Maybe we start thinking there's something strange or perhaps even evil about us, but the overwhelming response is to say little about it, shove it away in a corner and hope it goes away. Fat chance then that we'll ever figure ourselves out. So that just adds to the confusion. But let's assume that you have the courage to explore your emotions as they occur and end up in the 50% of the population who can accurately name or describe what they're feeling. That makes you a candidate for skill number 2 in the EQ sequence. And before I tell you what it is, my guess is that only 50% of the original half of the population have any kind of a handle on it. So obviously, that means only 1/4 of the people you meet can consistently demonstrate this skill. And that particular skill is the ability to change how you feel. And by that I mean how quickly, if at all, you can change how you feel because you choose to experience a different emotion to the one that you may have been trained or triggered into. For example, how easily can you drop being angry with someone who's hurt you and choose to feel compassion for the pain that they must be experiencing? Another example could be how fast you can slip from sadness, loss and grief for the loss of someone you love to gratitude for their impact on you and your life. Perhaps another example, how smoothly can you transform the paralysing fear of a potentially embarrassing situation into excitement about the opportunity to perform at a higher level than ever before? Now, why is it important for you to develop this ability? The first reason is that we lose unimaginable amounts of time while we struggle with these dominating kinds of feelings. That's time that can be used to move us towards our goals in life rather than time lost in circling, twisting and ruminating over things that can't be changed no matter how much we want them to be. Secondly, but perhaps more importantly, staggering amounts of energy go up in smoke when we get stuck in emotions that get us none of what we want and plenty of what we don't. We often find ourselves exhausted, but wearing a result that is the opposite of our desires. Thirdly, and perhaps most important of all, is that this is when we say and do the things that turn out to be amongst our most embarrassing and shameful. Our emotions get hijacked and we know that we're out of control, yet we remain powerless to stop the words and the deeds that we wish we could most take back. Many a career, friendship or marriage has been totally ruined by cruel words motivated by feelings that could not be put on hold when they should have been and could have been. So what do you do that needs to be done simply and easily every day, which will produce productive, useful and yet easy personal change? Well, Viktor Frankl put it in words in the 1950s. Between stimulus and response, there is a space. In that space is our opportunity to choose our response. In our response lies our growth and freedom. Nowadays we call it the gap, meaning how big can you make the gap between the stimulus and the response? The following can be said to encapsulate the modern interpretation of Frankl's wisdom. The larger the gap between the stimulus and the response, the more intelligent the response will simply be. Simply put, number 1, count to 10 before you open your mouth. Number 2, while you're counting to 10, identify what it is that you're feeling. Number 3, once you've identified and named that emotion, ask if it represents your ego or your values. And then number 4, choose to speak from your values. Try it. You'll not only like it, you'll like yourself a whole lot more than you do now because of the increasing self-respect you develop from being thoughtful and representing yourself with care and consideration. Okay, that's skill number 2. Have a practice while I get skill number 3 into words that make sense.